This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hello, welcome back to coffee number 5. Guys, I'm involved in the beauty industry, like I'm involved in the fashion industry. But one of the things that I learned as an entrepreneur and doing my own line of cosmetics, there was so much I didn't know. Today, I feel like I'm a better marketer just because I had to go through that process of creating a brand. So I want to bring to you guys an expert and a good friend, Matt Unger. Sorry. I always do this with every last name, and I know them. I swear that I know the last names.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Here and I destroy them. Anyway, I think that I'm paying back for people saying my last name bad for so many years. But welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
You come today, you are the president of Cosmetic Solutions.
Right.
But you've been around for a long, long time, over different countries, different continents. You were in Japan, in Europe, in China even. And your experience blows me away because not only you understand the industry, you also you understand different territories, which until today, I think today they're still different, but they are globalizing somehow. But many years ago, it were really different. You need to target completely different target audience.
Well, so Lara, I've been around consumer goods for over 30 years because I started when I was about 10.
Yes, of course, like I did.
But I've had the really fortunate experience of being able to work on so many different brands and work for so many different brands over those 30 years that it's really given me a rich background to be able to bring to our customers today, right? Whether it's ultimately looking for how do I solve this problem? How do I create this solution? How do I bring this forward? How do I afford it? I've pretty much seen a lot of the different scenarios. So I'm really thrilled to be in this position to be able to do that for our clients, but also for the industry, right? So to be able to then better not only our clients, but also the industry and contribute to this fantastic beauty and personal care industry.
And what it's very interesting about you today, that you're not only contributing to the industry today, you're working in the future of the industry, because you're already working with formulas and new technologies that they will see in the market in the next few years.
Correct. So not only are we impacting what happens in the next 3 months, but we're also working with our partners as well as our clients to change what's happening in the next 2 to 3 years. Correct. Yep. Yeah. And that's a really important part of guiding the future and really creating the future of categories and what they can look like, what they can feel like, and what consumers can experience, whether those consumers are experienced skincare consumers or whether they're, call it, Gen Alpha, just coming into the business and starting to experience what skincare means to them and how to create the future of their skin.
In the last few years, it was a huge switch, though. I seen like you had Sephora Clean, Credo Clean, and a lot of brands had to reformulate, change brands just to fit in those categories. How do you feel like this clean culture will evolve in the next few years? You think that it's going to get more restrictive? Because one thing is we're trying to be clean, but still by having those clean products or cleans in quotations are being, are the products that they really work, or we're missing the mark that giving solutions that they really work in order to be clean?
So I think that's a really great question, and it's a really important one to all of us. In fact, there was just a great article in Beauty Independent about this as well. So I think the entire business has had to clean up its act, right? So we've all had to identify and create cleaner ingredients that not only have less incidentals, but are also better for the environment, better for the water that they eventually go into, right? Better for the life cycle of things that live in the water. And so we all have to do that because there's, 8 billion of us, right? So maybe 4 billion of us are using some kind of skin or personal care product every day, right?
Yeah, I want to believe
So
more, but I'm not sure.
yeah, so I mean, who knows the real number, but all of that's impacting the environment around us. And so the entire industry has really made a concerted effort to do better and deliver better products. And, certainly we're at the forefront of that. So we certainly focus on not only what you would call natural and clean products, but also USDA organic certified products, right? So, there's different levels of cleanliness, as you were talking about, whether it's Sephora Clean or Credo Clean. There's different ingredient requirements required for those different retail outlets. And so different brands that are part of those ecosystems subscribe to different levels of cleanliness. So we as manufacturers, we as participants within the industry have to also make decisions as to how we design around that and how we design for not only maximum goodness, but also, make sure that we help ourselves to be most appealing to all of our clients.
But at this point in time, are we able to replace efficiency or efficacy with clean products?
I think so. Today, yes, it's taken quite a few years to get there. So I think 10 years ago, there was quite an evolution in terms of how you make it work and how you would emulsify and how you would get things to hold together. But we're in a very different place than we used to be. And cleanliness right now means no trade-offs. It used to mean I'm going to make a trade-off. It's going to feel different. It might not feel so luxurious. But these days, with the choices that we have, you can deliver the most luxurious textures, the most wonderful experiences with the cleanest of constructions.
That good news. That is really good news because it really was a challenge over time to find to meet the both worlds. Because if you are a small brand and you really want to be in certain markets or in certain places, they're gonna require a lot from you. Either
Yes.
and the POs might not be that big, but you still need to meet those requirements. So would you recommend someone to start formulating from the beginning and go completely clean? Or what's your recommendation for someone who's
I
starting?
mean, we try to think ahead for our brands, right? And really the industry needs to, but we try to think ahead so that we're always kind of 2 to 3 years ahead of where we think the requirements are headed, because otherwise you're in a constant race to reformulate or take an ingredient out. Granted, there's constant discontinuations of ingredients for many, many different reasons that we're all grappling with, right? All of us. So it's going to happen. That's
I
just a
want to put a
reality.
side note here for brand owners. This happens to everyone. It's not just you.
Everyone.
It happens to big brands and small brands. I know that for small brands, it's personal, but it's not. It's happening in the industry, and you need to meet that standards.
Exactly. But you used an interesting word earlier. You used the word restrictions. So I like to think of them as requirements. We don't think that it's restricting. We believe that these regulations are there for a reason, most of which is either to protect us or to protect the environment, or in the case of some specific states, when you think of the US, it's to protect specific ecosystems, right? So look at what Hawaii is trying to do to protect its reefs, right? So all of these regulations exist for a reason. Whether we love them or not is a different conversation, but they're there for a very good reason. So we embrace them and we design around them, and we try to create an experience that's as fantastic as possible, given the requirements that we have to work around.
So this, as a brand, it's really important for you guys out there to understand that when you are developing a product, you need to have very clear your standards, where you want to be as a brand, because you need to talk to your manufacturer, say, these are my standards. This is what I want to meet. Communication is, and here's what I found a lot of the problems and a lot of the gaps. And I would love to hear from you, what miscommunication problems you find with brand owners when they come to you and say, I want to create a brand. I have an idea with a brand. Because having an idea is easy. But then again, I'm going to use the word restriction because there are a lot of limitations. And I always say that you have your budget limitation. If you have certain budget, you're going to have to negotiate certain things and decide, oh, I want this packaging or this packaging. You don't have to settle on that. I want to be how sustainable you can be, depends of the cost. MOQs, or you want to have it fast. If you want to have all these things, it's
All
gonna
these
cost
things.
money. Exactly. So you tell us a story. How is it, and how can just to create a formulation? How long can we expect from day that we meet with you to the day that we're on the market?
That is a big, long question, Lara. So,
Yes, it was
so,
a lot of
you
questions
know,
inside one.
there's a really good conversation to have around that. So you recently had a podcast with Andrea Sid, I believe, where
Yes,
she talked about the thousands of little decisions that have to be made to get from the beginning to the end, right?
absolutely.
And I think that was really a very valuable discussion, but I want to build on that. So I think what's important in bringing your brand to a formulator that can also manufacture for you, right? There's a lot of choices that you can make. But when you bring it to a formulator that can manufacture that brand, you have to not only come with your vision and what's important to you, but you really have to put pen to paper as you really think about what are the requirements that I want to subscribe to. Am I going to be D2C? Am I going to go into an Ulta, for instance, a Sephora, a Target? Where am I, what doors do I want to go in, right?
And
And with those,
I will build into that. First, you need to know your target audience. You need to know your
who's gonna
persona.
who do I want to go after, right? Who's going to be shopping where? Who am I speaking to,
Because
right? I mean, there's
if you want to be a mass product, you're not gonna go in Sephora. It's not gonna
correct.
happen. So, and also it has to do a lot with the cost. I think that a lot of brands are failing in this communication, saying this is a price point I need to hit. Because if you want to go into retail, then you're gonna have to give a huge percentage of that. And if you want to make profit, you need to make
There's
sure your margins are there.
there's constant areas where margin is going to be taken, right?
Hmm?
Whether it's through distribution, whether it's through other logistics points, rekitting, repackaging, relabeling, right? So there's all of these points where margin is taken from you as a brand owner. So that also has to be taken into account as you design in the ultimate price that you feel you can retail at. And then we help you. Let's say you know that you want to retail at $29, right, for a certain item. We have formulas, we understand how it works, and so we help you understand, well, for that price, you can have this type of formula at this type of fill size, or that type of formula at that type of fill size, or these types of packaging features, because, right, if you want to have dressier packaging, all of it eventually piles up into a price point, right?
Yep.
And so, and then if you want it cartoned, if you want it to have this, if you want a bow tie around it, all of that is going to impact the total cost and therefore the total margins that you can have with your product as you create that total vision. And so what we do is we work with you to put pen on paper so you understand the choices that you're making and how those are going to impact ultimately what kind of juice is going to go in that beautiful iconic little package that you want to select, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that
Then
I always say is that you can love your brand, you cannot be too in love with your brand, because your brand is not going to be perfect ever. And you're always going to find little things here and there that you're going to have always accept or make it evolve.
I think the most important thing for founders and visionaries, brand owners, is the ability to make decisions. And the decisions that have to be made can either, sometimes we find out that we don't love the decisions we made, but it's so important to make a decision because what we find, you talked in part of the original question, you said, well, how long does it take to get to market, right? It can take 6 to 9 months, right? If you work with a formula that was basically ready to go. The thing is, though, you have to be able to make decisions.
Yeah. Let's talk for a
And
second about that, the formula that is ready to go. Because a lot of people think that the manufacturing process is going and creating a formula from scratch. But there are alternatives. You have white labeling, or you have something in between.
there's many choices in between.
Yes, exactly.
There's many choices to make, right? So And, quite frankly, you can take call it a white label or a market-ready formula that a formulator or manufacturer has available, and you can make it pretty custom, right? You
Mhm.
can make it look like a formula that was custom designed for you very quickly. It's really not that challenging to do, and if you put it in a beautiful package and a really sharp label, it's, who knows where it came from, right?
Exactly. So when someone start the process, you recommend them to start formulation, to start branding, or what comes first? What is it to you, the chicken or the egg?
Well, often the eggs are scrambled,
Yes.
and half the time the chickens are free range, so they're running all around. I think it's super important that a client has a vision of who they want to speak to as a consumer and where they want to be. And how many SKUs, what is your opening offering going to be, right? How are you going to get in there? And then how are you going to build upon it? I think you really need to understand not only how you're going to start, but where am I going to be a year or two from now, right? So that you have a plan,
Yep.
right? And then your manufacturer is going to work with you on that plan, and they're going to help you along that journey, but also make sure that that manufacturer can help you on that journey, because I think a lot of founders and visionaries that have come across sometimes choose a manufacturer that can't help them get from A to B, and then you have to change, and that becomes a scary time, right? Because sometimes you don't know what your formula really is, sometimes you're not given the information, sometimes you're not really sure of all of the documentation you need. And, for sure, a lot of that is going to change as MOCRA comes into effect and those brands are at a certain scale. And for those that don't know, that's the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act, which the FDA has implemented. But with that, I think it's super important to work with a manufacturer that you can trust, and
Mhm.
that's going to give you the right to own so that you can manage your
Absolutely.
brand, as long as both of you win, right? So both
Yes,
of
of
you have to
course.
be able to win from a business perspective, but ultimately the founder and the visionary, the brand owner, should have what they need to have. And then the manufacturer and formulator of the products that has helped you get to market should also get the benefit that they want to get out of the effort that they've invested in you.
Yes, but also let me build on that. You need to have all your partners together, not only say, oh, I have a formula, and then say, oh, I need to find someone who's going to be doing my marketing on my label. Or, oh, how are we going to do sales? Because you're going to find like you're going to get in desperation mode all the time.
Mhm.
And I see this again all the time that, oh, now I have a brand. How do I go retail? Do you want to go retail? What was your plan? What was your original plan? Oh, I just thought that I will create such an amazing brand that things will happen.
So there was a really interesting podcast on Coffee Number Five recently about marketing and PR and communications, right? So I think
Yes.
I very much agree. It's really important for the brand to understand what their marketing plan is, and what kind of budget. You have a budget for inventory that you're going to buy in terms of the finished goods. You also need to have a marketing budget. You need to have, if you're going to go into doors, you typically have to pay for that retail space. So you need a budget to pay for the retail space. You need a budget to pay for
If you,
attorneys, because
yes,
responsible parties, right? So
if
there's
you
all
have
of these,
sales, you have a salesperson, you
a
have to,
sales resource or a broker, right? So all of
yes.
these different elements of actually making it a success and making it happen are going to require budget items, and therefore are going to be parts of your margin and expense.
And even little things that you don't think about them, but it really, they build up to be a lot. Shipping. Shipping
Yes.
is huge. Even you have to buy the UPC cost.
Yep.
Or packaging, secondary packaging, or you're gonna have to, if you're gonna do D2C, you're gonna have to have the package that you're gonna be sent it to, or cost of postage. There is so many little hidden costs, and even if you have a website, Shopify has a cost. Every app has a
Yep.
cost. So
Yep.
you need to be very aware of everything before you decide to go into manufacture.
You almost need to have a bit of a slush fund for those unknowns, right?
Yep,
Because there's
a
almost no way
contingency.
a contingency. There's no way to detail out all of the unexpected cost elements that are going to come from reaching your
Yeah.
consumers,
And
right?
the last podcast that you were mentioned before with Robin Doyle, we were talking that PR now has a cost also. It's not for
Mhm.
free. You're gonna have to give a lot of product to influencers,
You
to
get product
editors,
for
so
free.
for
Yes.
free. Yes, gift
Yes.
bags. You're gonna have to give a lot away of your product.
You're going to want to be at shows, even giving gift bags away, right? Like the more visibility, the better. Yep. It's all
Exactly.
giveaways.
A
Yep.
lot. So you expect that your first order is gonna be mostly giveaways. So
Yep.
how do you see this industry? And I'm sure you have some of these influencers or celebrities that they have brands nowadays that they're very popular.
Mhm.
How do they differentiate with someone else who wants to have a brand? Is the same kind of formulas, or you have a different way to work with them?
In terms of working with celebrities and influencers.
Yes.
So, honestly, most celebrities and most of the larger influencers have their people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they either have agencies that they work with, or companies that help broker deals and manage all of the complexities of getting to market. But ultimately, that celebrity knows that their name is behind the product, right? So they're typically highly involved in the decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, are the same products that any founder can make.
Um, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same types of, there are so many things you can do. From there's different ingredients, there's different benefits you can speak to, there's different textures we can design in depending on the cost profile, right? So certain cost profiles can afford a more luxurious texture because you have different modifiers and different elements that can create that experience for the consumer. So it really also depends on, again, who's the consumer that the celebrity really wants to reach, and how much of their audience do they feel can afford the price point that they will ultimately need to be at, so that they're happy with the time that they've spent on it and what it's doing for them. They've also reached the audience that they want to reach because they have their audience and their people, right?
Mhm.
And then they've got their agency, which wants to do well. The manufacturer wants a little piece of the pie, right?
Of
So
course.
again, it goes back to that whole discussion of all of those different elements of margin and cost that have to be planned for and known ahead of time.
One of the things that I found the most challenging, and it's funny because I thought as an agency, I would find it the easiest part, the packaging, because we do it all the time, the design, but then go and find the packaging and also with the MOQs, that is something that it was really challenging. How
Absolutely.
I mean, what's a minimum order that you will suggest someone to start with? And do you see that after the first, there's how many, there are variations after the first launch of the brands? Do you feel like a lot of people come back and say, hi, I think I need to reformulate?
So I think understanding the MOQs, and in a way I'll call it your opening volley, right? Your
Mhm.
launch volume. Understanding the MOQs that you can afford and the cash that you can lay out is super important. But understanding as well the replenishment cycle is second in importance, because I think what most young founders or even some celebrities often forget is you have to be ready to replenish, and replenishment itself takes time
Yep.
for a new brand, right? And with those young brands, especially with young brands that have like really innovative approaches to things, you may want to reformulate, or call it course correct. I don't want to call it reformulate because that's
Yeah.
a big word, but you may want to course correct in terms of, I want to take this down, or I want to talk more about this, or, here's the feedback I'm getting from influencers or from, core users, right? So you also have to be able to build that in as you think about your replenishment cycle, and then how you're going to implement the future of the brand over the next 12 to 18 months. Because we haven't talked about, there's stability, there's
Yes.
safety testing,
That
there's
was
claims
that was one
testing,
of the
there's
things. Let's talk a
yes.
little bit about that because you have your formula, then I was talking about this with someone actually. Don't order your package until you have it tested. Talk to your formulator that your formula actually works in your package. And there are many
Yes,
reasons that it might not work. So why are the reasons and what
there
are
are
the tests that we
there
do?
are often many reasons why certain packaging doesn't work. Sometimes the formula gets exposed to springs that might be in pumps. Yes, a lot of metal is being taken out of pumps, which is very helpful, but sometimes it still happens. And, things occur with resins, with color, right? Like there's always some, in my 30 years, I've seen enough surprises that you want to make sure that you go through the cycle, right? Before you place
Yeah.
you want
So
to get some data. You may not want to wait for months, right? Because the stability cycle can take months, but you probably want to get some level of data so that you understand that you've got something giving you some
I love
confidence.
data. So what testing? I know that we do a testing to make sure that the formula doesn't separate, that stability. What else do we do?
So there's stability to make sure it doesn't separate, and that takes it through different temperatures, sometimes different humidities. Also takes it through freeze thaw because your product can get exposed to extremely cold temperatures. It can also get heat cycled because it can get exposed to extremely high temperatures for very brief periods of time, right? And so you want to understand that. And then also compatibility studies the dispensing. So a jar is easy, right? But
Yes.
if you're pumping it, or if you have an airless pump, you want to make sure that you can dispense something not only through the life cycle of the product, but what if it sits in the pump for a week and then you come back to it and it gets stuck in the
Yeah.
nozzle, right? So you have some kind of polymerization of the product. So you're going to have to fix that, or you're going to have to get a different pump that's not going to allow that to happen, right? So there's
Also
work
that the
that's sometimes,
consistency that it will come out right from the little
and
pump.
that you're pumping out the right amount, right? So do you
Yes.
want half a cc? Do you want 0.25 cc's in a pump? There's so many choices to be made there, and then there's so many
One of the
shapes and
things that
sizes.
one of the things that I learned is to read the reviews in Amazon or anywhere. You learn a lot from that. And you say, oh, it's a little, when you're talking about creams and eye creams and they're expensive many times, you don't want to get a lot out. You want to use what you need at the time. So you don't want a big opening. So those things are really important to keep in consideration when you choose your packaging.
Well, and these days also, I think newer brands want to be very careful to try to pick mono-material packaging to try to be responsible in
Yes.
the packaging that they select, right? So that's also an important part of working with your manufacturer if, like we do, if you're providing turnkey solutions, right?
Mhm.
So we have packaging partners that we work with to provide turnkey solutions that are also very focused on sustainability and monomaterial sourcing and making sure that it's good for different recycle streams, et cetera, right? So I think it's super
And that's
important to keep that in mind.
it's very challenging because of the MOQs packaging.
And the packaging MOQs are often a little bit more difficult than the MOQs from your manufacturer.
Yes, they are. So you have to be ready. And that's another part that is challenging, that if you need, how do you say, not reformulate, you need to
To course correct.
course correct, then you have your label in your packaging. So
Yes.
you might need to trash that. So
You may
then
need to
you're
change your label, right?
Yes, so then you're not sustainable because you trash all this product. So it's always a challenge. So that's why to me it's really important to find your partners that they've been doing this and for a long time, and they are already predicting plan B, plan this might happen. So
Yes.
listen to the experts. That's what I learned for many years, and I still learning. I mean, I'm learning in each podcast, but it's so important as because honestly, I'm not in every macro regulation. I don't know everything new,
Well,
but
and you shouldn't be, right? I think that's the job of your manufacturer and their
exactly.
regulatory resources, right? And so make sure that your manufacturer has regulatory resources that you can rely on,
Yeah,
so that you understand that you're in good hands. Because
absolutely. And someone that you feel like, hey, if there is something that concerns me, that they're gonna reach out and will let me know what to do.
yes,
Because
exactly.
it's a lot of work to be a founder and to have a product out there and to be working with your teams and to be knocking on doors. And on top of that, not trusting your team that they will do what you need to do or let you know what you need to do. So it's
exactly. It's very true. And so it's super important. Like I said, it's super important to make sure that you trust who you're working with, that you believe that you're in good hands, and ask all of the you should be able to ask any question you want to ask and get an answer that you feel comfortable getting.
okay.
Right.
What was, I mean, I seen that there are a lot of I don't know if mistakes, but there are a lot of hard choices that we need to make as an entrepreneurs or business owners. But when you're starting a brand from scratch and you don't have a background, and to be honest with you, if you have the budget, it's not that hard to make a cosmetic brand. It's possible. It's not that you have to have a PhD to do it. Anyone can do it as long as you partner with the right people. But what are the worst mistakes that you've seen people done?
Except for the people that actually sit at the bench making your product, then they should
Exactly.
really have the right degree.
Exactly. Yes, those they should have. But what are the worst mistakes that you say, no, that's a no?
I think the worst mistakes I've seen are when someone has a vision, and the vision does not hold itself together with the proper chemistry, right? And so, and then you're not able to have a conversation about, I understand your vision, but if you want to do this, we won't be able to do it this way. We'll have to do it that way. And to be flexible enough to understand that the experts, right? So rely on your experts, that the experts are telling you that you can have it this way, but you can't have it that way, literally because of physics or chemistry, right? Or if you want it that way, I have to do it, this way, and you're going to have this type of texture, right? There's a lot of chemistry. Think about the products that you're creating. So you're creating, typically the products have water. Some of them don't, but many do.
Yeah.
And so you're creating products that are sitting on a shelf for 3 years, up to 3 years, right? That have to be stable, that don't go rancid, that don't grow mold, that don't grow bacteria. It's amazing how safe and reliable our personal care products really are, right? Better than the bread that you eat, right? Better than
Yeah,
the vegetables,
absolutely.
right? So just think how long that they, when you have that bottle of whatever sitting on your counter, it lasts a long time.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing. So it's a feat of modern chemistry that we're able to do that, and that it's so stable and so reliable, and that you can use it day after day, month after month, and know that it's going to work for you. And so making sure that you work with the people, with the manufacturers that you can trust, that have the right chemists, that have the right people at the bench that understand the chemistry they're bringing to you, and to be open to the conversation is super important.
I think another thing that is super important is to know your brand story and who you are as a brand. Because if you're going to be and say, for me, it's really important that it's for sensitive skin, but then you are obsessed with an ingredient that is not for sensitive skin. Your brand story needs to be connected with your ingredients.
Yes, very much.
And that's what I see a lot of brands fail, that they want to be something, but they are not. You need to be very consistent with your brand voice and who you are. It's not what I'm telling
Absolutely.
you, not telling you who I am. This is who I am. You have the ingredients that ingredients don't like.
And with the choices that you're making, right? In turn, so if you want to be all about sensitive skin, then you have to be making certain choices about not only the ingredients that are in your product, but also the pH that I want to be at, and why is pH important when it comes to skin, and having the proper safety testing to substantiate safe for sensitive skin. So a lot goes into those decisions.
How a brand owner can prepare themselves? How can they learn all these things?
I think a brand owner gets prepared by working with the right company that can take them through what essentially is a complicated journey, right?
Yes, it
It
is.
really is.
It is as easy as it is to
Like,
have a brand.
use us
The
like a
complete,
GPS system.
yes, No, but as easy as it is to create a brand nowadays, because we have all these amazing technologies, but at the same time, it's a complicated process, and there are so many things that are aligned. Like to me, for example, maybe you disagree with me. Brand, for example, a brand deck, who you are as a brand, is something that you need to communicate to your manufacturer before you even
Mhm.
start. We all need to realign who the brand is. And then when you have the ingredients and everything, you can work on your branding, on your deck and all that. But the clarity of who your brand is, it needs to be from the very beginning.
Absolutely agree. Yep. It's you have to know who you are and what you want to be about, what your vision is before you go about that journey.
Okay, so for example, let's play. If I want to have a brand and work with you guys, and so what questions would you ask me to determine what kind of formula will create for me?
Well, so as you think about who you are, so for instance, we have a briefing process, right?
Mhm.
So this is not something that would be unusual or new. So we have a briefing process. There are very specific questions to really understand what it is that you're looking for so that we can vet the idea properly and come back to you with proposals that are going to support what your vision is.
That's awesome. But let's talk about cost, because that's a lot of things that people don't understand the cost you're going to have. The product cost, that is going to be the cost of ingredients, basically.
Mhm.
Then you have the labor cost, besides your packaging and all those things. How is the breakdown of
You
working
have
with you guys?
You have formula cost, you have a making and filling cost, you have your packaging, you have your secondary packaging, sometimes your tertiary packaging.
Yes.
Then you have the distribution, which sometimes can be multiple distribution points, which is where that logistics expense goes.
You might
And
even have a label inside.
you may have a little leaflet or label, and
Yes.
I mean, there, you also may have a higher end skincare product where you want to insert a special spatula or some special implement,
Mhm.
either as an ongoing offer or as a special giveaway, right? So
Mhm.
there are all of these things that you have to keep in mind as you go through the process.
What about samples? Because that's something that is you always need samples, and the samples have a cost. Is it
Mhm.
the cost exactly the same as a percentage of what the big size will cost, or is not?
Um, Sample cost is not linear.
Mhm.
Um, But I think samples are extremely important. So finding partners that can support you in reaching more consumers and in, getting your message out there and getting trial. So trial is so important in really understanding what the product can do for me and becoming a fan of the product. So it's super important to be able to have that supported.
To me, I mean, I love samplings and I love to try products, but I just find out that those little packets, they don't do it for me because I use it one time and I cannot see if
Yeah.
it works or not.
You don't know. And a lot of times when it comes to skincare, you need at least a week to really decide, am I going to love this or not? Does it cause me to break out? Does it really help me with whatever I'm trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
You really need about a week, if not 2 weeks, right? So I think to me, sample sizes are often, just, you know, s- smaller versions of your package that you can really speak to and have some equity around and give consumers at least a week that they can try it and really fall in love with it. But samples ultimately are an investment, right? Because you typically
Yeah.
don't get to charge too much for them, right?
Yeah, no, you don't get to charge probably. And
Right.
on top of that, you still need to pay for the packaging. Normally they don't have a secondary package, but sometimes do. And but then you
Sometimes they do.
yes, but then you need to pay also for the filling. And those costs are
Oh, and
there.
these tiny little, right.
Yes, it has a cost.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying it's not linear because often, when you start to get into those 0.25 ounce, half ounce, tiny little packages, those have to be filled very carefully because, you have to still make them look very nice. And so it's not exactly linear. It becomes, in a way, a little bit of an investment in order to get your brand out there and get the trial with the consumers that you want to reach.
Yeah, but these are two different walls, by the way. I just want to separate them. Normally, when you send to editors or influencers, you send them the full size.
The full
The
size.
full size. You cannot cheat on
The
those.
the
Even in
sample
the gift
size
bag.
is, yeah, the sample size is either going to be something where you have a giveaway at retail, or
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you bought this SKU and I'm going to sample another SKU, right? So you're going to get a free
Exactly.
gift with purchase that's going to help you continue
Well, I
to,
will call it a free sample with with purchase,
yes.
because gift will be a full size. As a marketer, it's always a full size.
Gotcha. But you're going to want to get them, you know, more into whatever franchise you're creating, right? So
Yeah.
so the more you can give them and help them, the more they're going to understand about the total franchise that you're offering.
Before we go, I have one question for you, which I think that everyone wants to hear. What do you see, or what do you see that the most successful indie brands that you work with, what do they do to be successful? There is anything in common that they have?
That's a really great question and a good ending question. I think, to me, there are two key aspects to successful brands that we've worked with. One, they understand their consumers, they understand how to reach their consumers, but they also understand the importance of decision making and the discipline in decision making, right? Because to be able to enhance the speed to market of any decision that you're making is super important in this process. So to me, those would be two of the most important characteristics that I would highlight of successful, you know, indie emerging clients that we're working with.
And I will add to that, because I agree 100% from the marketing side. When you make a decision, you stick for the decision for a while. You don't change your marketing plan because you give it a month.
Again, it may not be the best decision, but it was a decision so that you can
Exactly.
keep moving forward.
Exactly. Thank you,
Yes.
Matt. Thank you so
Well,
much for having coffee with me. I so enjoyed this.
my extreme pleasure. Always wonderful to have a conversation with you. I appreciate it.
And to you guys, I will see you next week with more coffee number 5.
Find everything you need at laraschmoisman.com or in the episode notes right below. Don't forget to subscribe.
It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.